Going. Going. All set? I call the meeting of the North Syracuse Central School District Board of Education to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to observe a moment of silence for the following. Timothy Moriarty, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. Frank Papalia, a retiree of the North Syracuse Central School District. Mary Stoddard, a former employee of the North Syracuse Central School District. Ryan Silva, a former student of the North Syracuse Central School District. Patrick Lamb, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. Charles Renk, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. Patricia Connors, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. And Maureen Maurer, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. Thank you.
President, can I say a few words about a couple of these people?
Yes, certainly.
I would like to talk about Mary Stoddard first. I met Mary, at that time was Mary Alexander. She was a second grade teacher when Main Street was the kindergarten through fifth grade school. She taught second, I taught fifth. And we talked a little bit, but I really didn't get to know her then. The next year, she left the North Syracuse Central School District and went to work for the New York State United Teachers. Mary, let's go back. In the 1970s, boards of education and superintendents didn't really appreciate teachers. I lived through it. We had really no rights at all. Whatever the principal said or the administrator did, we had to do it. And Mary Stoddard negotiated hundreds of contracts with all of the school districts, I believe, in central New York. And teachers got better pay. Teachers were respected. Teachers had smaller class sizes. And things began to change. Mary was the beginning of all of this. And it's a sad day to lose someone like that. The next one, excuse me, is very difficult for me. Ryan Silva. One thing for a teacher is to lose a student early in their life. And Ryan Silva was a student of mine at Bear Road Elementary. It was called Bear Road then. Very, very bright young man. And unfortunately, he died at the age of 38, left 3 children. So I feel for his family. I feel for his kids. And I will never forget Ryan. He was a great student. Thank you, Mr. President.
No, thank you, Mr. Crabtree. I had the privilege of working quite a bit with Mary Stoddard. Mary Castman at the time I knew her as. So she was a trailblazer, truly. So thank you. Dr. Kramer and Ms. Kruger are excused for today. We have the board member-elect, Josh Ludden, who's sitting with us today as a non-voting board member, but I want to welcome Josh. And do you have anything you'd like to share?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say thank you to all of the folks who felt that they could trust me with their vote. And I'm looking forward to working with a great group up here and making sure that the North Syracuse Central School District is a great place for every teacher and every student. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ludden. And I just want to mention, I know we're very full and everybody is equally welcome to be in this room, but we did fill up. If you're on the list to speak and you're in the other room, our clerk will get to you and you will be able to get here. So no worries there. And our first presentation, that it's good that we have a big crowd for you today, is our facilities update, capital project status. So I'm going to turn that over and answer all the questions on where everything stands.
Well, welcome, everyone. I am Matt Irwin, the Director of Facilities for the North Syracuse Central School District. Want to introduce Bob Buffio first with Watchdog Building Partners on our construction management team. Kirk Narberg with King and King, one of our architects of record, and Amanda Thomas, another architect of record for the school district. So we've got a lot going on in the district. There are many, many projects that you all have been very supportive of. We're very thankful for that. We're going to show you today some of the progress being made on those projects and give you some insights into some of where we're at with design work on the projects that aren't active currently. Okay.
Hi, so this first slide is Bear Road. Construction is all done. There's a few minor punch list items that we're taking care of now. Next up is Smith Road. This photo was taken last week. The playground is installed. We're just waiting on the rubber surfacing and the mulch to go in. This is the high school HVAC upgrades. This is all the stuff that can't be seen by the public, but is essential to keeping clean air and the quality good throughout the school. Boiler project, we're just getting that underway. Obviously, we couldn't start till school is out, so this just shows a couple slides of the demo process of it.
Okay, Bob talked about a couple of projects that are currently in construction that his team is managing. Kirk and I are going to kind of tag team this about all the things that North Syracuse has in design right now. So there's quite a few things, so we're going to go through them. And we wanted to give you a brief snapshot of some of the design images that we've been sharing with the district team and the Board of Education as we move forward. The first is what we're calling phase 2. This is a project that's CNS. It includes renovations to the gym and the locker rooms on the ground floor, as well as renovations to the auditorium and the addition of a fly tower. So this first image is an image that we use to portray what that auditorium is going to look like. So this project is currently with the State Education Department being reviewed. In the second slide, we have a plan of the newly configured locker rooms and how those are going to be laid out, new locker rooms as well as new team rooms, and then as well as a rendering of the new renovated gym. Another project that we are working on is the district-wide energy performance project. As Bob talked about, it's not something that you'll necessarily see like the gym or the auditorium, but it really focuses on energy performance of the district's buildings and making that better and more efficient and saving costs. So currently that is in design. It's going to go to the State Education Department shortly. And once that's done, Danforth will do all the work. The next thing that is also in design is the pool addition. This addition will go and be directly adjacent to those locker rooms in that gymnasium that I just spoke of. This is an example of the floor plan. So you can see the 8-lane pool, associated locker rooms. That area in white is the locker rooms I just talked about, the renovated locker rooms. And then the plan next to that is the upper spectator area that will also be included. Yeah.
So what I really want to share about this particular project is the work that went into coordinating with our building staff, our PE teams, to really make sure that this pool addition is going to be accessible to the public and secure from the school building. Okay, so we spent a lot of time going back to the drawing table to make sure that we met those goals. So with the new locker room design and with the pool layout, we will have egress from the locker rooms out to the sports fields without going through the pool areas. And we'll have access to the pool without access to the building as a whole, okay? So that was one of the driving goals of that project, was to make sure this pool is as accessible as possible to the community. There's still a lot of work to do to make that access a reality, but the initial steps are happening in the design of the project.
I think the pool project is really exciting for the district because we've been talking about this pool for several decades now. And for all of you who are trying to figure out where exactly this is, so the pool is basically the brand new building is going to be where the tennis courts are for the most part now, right behind where the gym comes out. You know, right now, if you were to exit out the backside of the gym through the doors to the south, you would go on that little porch. If anybody's ever been back there and then wraps around, you will actually now exit into a corridor that will provide access to the viewing area at a higher level than the pool deck for spectators. So it's a really great layout for people coming to watch events and then for the students doing the events themselves.
Absolutely. And these are just a couple of renderings, conceptual renderings that we did to really show how that new pool addition is connected to the gymnasium, as Kirk talked about, and then also a view of what it'll look like with the stadium beyond. So it really provides a nice connective piece. So the next project that we're also working on is Lakeshore Elementary renovations. Similar to what we did at Bear Road, with Bear Road being the basis of that renovation, and we're using that moving forward. We're actually renovating half of the Lakeshore building. As you can see in this slide, the colored part is the part that we're renovating, and then the two wings that come off the back of the building will stay as is until potentially a second phase in the future. So in this project, we're renovating the cafeteria, the gymnasium, what is going to be the fourth grade wing, new central main office with secure entry, and then art and music area. And then these are just a couple of conceptual renderings of the fourth grade wing, one of the classroom and one of a flexible shared space in between one set of fourth grade classrooms.
I get the exciting stuff. All right, so in December, just not too long ago, there was a referendum vote that included three parts. There was work at Main Street School, most importantly to redo the roof, which has been leaking for many, many years. It's past its useful life and was a huge high priority along with the water main work. So that work is in design right now. We had to accelerate that because of the importance of getting that work done at Main Street so that we can keep that building operational and for the most part watertight. So that's the first part of this referendum from December. The second part, which is also in design right now, is what we termed as the safety and security project, which involves every building in the district. And it's a multifaceted approach of not only communication systems, but secure vestibules, entry and exit from the buildings, along with access controls and a slew of other security and safety features that are part of that. That will touch every building that's not currently in design as part of a renovation project. And that work will go into the state education department at the end of the year. And that work will begin next year. The other part of this is, that's really the safety and security project, which will go into SED in December, and then the work will begin after next summer. The last part of that phase was the Gillette Road capital project. That's a series of infrastructure elements at the middle school that includes upgrades to the heating and ventilation system, and most importantly, air conditioning. And then the other large component of that project is the athletic fields to create the synthetic turf multi-purpose area, which includes the baseball and the multi-purpose fields, all as part of that. That work has yet to begin design. That's going to be done next year, and that work won't begin until 2025. And then a couple miscellaneous projects, if you didn't know. The junior high, which has had air conditioning, one of the oldest buildings in the district that had air conditioning, the chiller components were past their useful life. We were put in a situation that we either didn't have air conditioning or we got it back as quickly as we could. So that project, unfortunately with supply chain issues, has been set back a bit longer than we expected, waiting for the chillers to arrive. They are going to be arriving shortly, and then we'll get that taken care of that summer. So that works under construction. And then we have a New York State capital outlay projects that the district has the discretion of doing that can include up to $100,000 project that's actually voted as part of the budget process. This year, that project is being done related to the greenhouse at CNS, which is in some, high need of getting some renovations. So we're going to redo the glass. And then more than likely next year will be another phase of that capital outlay project to do the inside of the greenhouse. So there is much going on, lots of exciting things for the district, a lot of necessary infrastructure elements, and we gave this update to the facility committee last week, and this is really our update to the board today as to where we're at. A lot of moving parts, and our intention is to keep everybody updated periodically so everybody knows what's going on. It seems like a long time from when we have these referendums to when stuff starts happening that people can see. That's just the nature of these projects in New York State. Believe me, you're going to start to see a lot of things happening next year for sure.
Questions? Seeing none.
All right. Well, thank you
Thank-
very much
thank
for
you.
having us. And if anything does come up, please let me know.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're at the section of the board meeting where we welcome public comments. Just for an introduction to that. Board of Education meetings are public meetings. They're meetings held in public basically, and public's welcome to attend and observe. Here in North Syracuse, we welcome comments on matters around related to the district, and we welcome here at this point in time. It's the best practice that most districts do use. Here we set aside a time of 30 minutes, and we allot that to 3 minutes per speaker. And in this forum, the Board of Education members are not going to engage in conversation or answer questions during this portion. So just some of the rules: issues involving particular students or employees are not permissible topics during the public meeting. Employee or student concerns should be addressed to the superintendent of schools during regular business hours. One speaker is allowed up to 3 minutes, as I said before, to present their remarks. And there'll be no more than 10 individuals, of which we are, of course, capped out tonight. And you can't defer your time slot to another person. All remarks are addressed directly to the board, and any questions that come up here will be answered by a school official. And if you leave something in writing, and I encourage that, you may not get all your 3 minutes in, leave something in writing or send something in writing to our district clerk. She'll make sure every board member receives that. And lastly, and I do have the list that's on the agenda in the order that everybody should have that in. We do have people in the other room, so when you're speaking, there's a microphone up here. Make sure the green light is on and speak into the mic so people can hear that in the other room. So we are ready to start. Yes, sir. Well, I was just going to say, because we have a full house, when it gets to 3 minutes, I will tap the gavel. I'm not trying to be rude, but I'll tap the gavel. You'll hear a beeper go off with the district clerk. So I would ask you to finish your thought, and please get whatever remarks you didn't get to our district clerk to be distributed. So I'd ask for your cooperation there. Yes, sir. Yeah, if speakers would like to do that, that'd be great. So we'll begin then with Dave Monahan, who's, I'm going to let you come up, and when you start, she'll start that timer. Thank you. Should be right on that.
Speak clearly. They're having a
Speak,
tough time.
speak clearly. Does this come down to, I mean, I'm not the tallest guy in the world. How you doing, Mike? Congratulations. When's my time start? All right, I'm ready to rock and roll. All right, good evening, board members, superintendent, and most of all concerned citizens that from the school district that are attending tonight. This is unbelievable. I love it. I'm Dave Monahan. I ran for school board the last time. I didn't make it, didn't get enough votes, but that's okay, because I might try again next year. However, I would like to congratulate the candidates that did win, Mr. Marizio, Mr. Moody Wusick, and Josh Ludden over here, who I would like to say were all sponsored by the NSEA, the North Syracuse Education Association. I'll speak on that at a future date. So main reason why I'm here tonight is not about policy 5311.8. It's all about the school budget, the 2023-24 school budget. It was close vote this year, 59% approval. Only 1,835 people voted in this school district out of over 40,000. That's not very good, people. So that equates to a 4.5% voter turnout. And the unfortunate thing, that's a historical norm in this school district. Oh, sorry, I'm from Cicero. Lived here 3 years, exactly today. But as per the turnout tonight, you can see that people are finally waking up. It's not because of the budget. At least most people here are for a different reason, policy 5311.8. And I am thankful that you passed this policy. And you might think, why is that? Because of this. People are showing up to these meetings and there's an overflow area out there. I've been to numerous meetings. I know everybody here recognizes me, and there's really not a lot of people that show up. So I'm glad you're here. It hit home with their kids, and they're their kids. Back to the budget. It was increased this year, nearly $15 million with a 9-0 vote. There wasn't one current member of this board that voted no. Even the Supreme Court, it's rare you get a 9-0 decision from the Supreme Court. So I don't know why it has to be a 9-0 vote. I'm sure there's some members in here, and I'm not gonna say any names. I'll be discreet, that may not agree with it. But historically, going back to 2016, and budget have increased $4 million annually. Last year it went up $8 million, and this past year it went up $15 million. To what end? Are the academic proficiencies of students improved? And I would say no. Now, what is the $15 million increase focused on? What's broke actually? Can anybody tell me what's really broke? If you can get back to me on that, I would really appreciate it. Did math and reading proficiencies this year improve? No. Math proficiency in this school district, 45%. 33 minutes? Oh, good God. The public school average 56%, the reading proficiency is 50%, and public school average in New York State, 63%. Please don't throw money at something that you don't know what the causes are. Just research it and find out what's broke. Is it the students, the teachers, the curriculum, the testing, a result of COVID? It's probably a combination of all those things and many, many others.
So make sure we get a copy of that, because I
So-
will definitely read that.
So
Okay?
please do the work. And thanks a lot for showing up. I hope this is the epicenter that they experienced in Virginia, because that's where I'm from, Loudoun County, in the election of 2020.
Hey, thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Susan Manridge. Did I say that correctly? Okay. When you're okay.
We're green. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Susan Manridge. I am a school psychologist in the North Syracuse District. as well as a parent to a student attending the junior high next year. I'm here to support the policy that promises our gender nonconforming and transgender students a safe place to engage in their education just as they are. I'm here because there are some people that don't believe that should be true. And so we all argue back and forth about people's categories and the morality we attach to them. The thing we forget, though, is that what does matter in public education are those high up on the totem pole institutions who decide the rules that detail the code of ethics for standard of conduct. I'm sure you can guess these ethics aren't structured around parents or teachers or district leaders. They are structured around the students. What this means is that all students have the right to the freedom to learn, whether they're Black, white, Jew, Muslim, straight, gay, anyone. Schools are youth-centered spaces, and the education that we provide academically, physically, and emotionally must be guided by evidence-based decisions that allow for students to experience success. So what does the evidence say? It certainly says that these students exist, otherwise we wouldn't be here. So are we providing them with the same education as their peers? Unfortunately, the data on this is very clear. Without a safe, inclusive environment, these students experience numerous ill effects, including lower GPAs, higher rates of absenteeism, higher levels of depression, higher likelihood of substance use, and higher rates of death by suicide. You know, I hear people say all the time that they're doing things in the name of what's right. I don't think anybody finds those things to be right. Or that 75% of trans and gender nonconforming students aren't physically and emotionally safe at school. 61% verbally bullied, 13% physically attacked, 6% sexually assaulted. Is it right that 9% of these students will receive actual death threats? If your child isn't gender nonconforming, well, this should not be an issue for you. If it's other people's children that are an issue for you, that makes your ideology the problem, not the children that are deemed to be so scary. I mean, really, if we want our children to have specialized education programs, they're all over the place. From Montessori schools, online schools, private schools, military schools, boarding schools, even religious specific schools that share particular beliefs. Either way, no matter how we sum this up, this is not a student problem. We should all be able to agree that we have to help our children understand that different types of experiences make us feel different types of ways, that we need to know more in order to identify and integrate those feelings for future use, and that the belief that a student arrives at from this process will have a profound and lasting impact. The beliefs that they put out into the world shape the views of any person that meets them, much like every belief that we put out into the world shapes the views of the children that hear it.
3 minutes. Did you
Thank
make it? Thank you. Okay, we have Jessica Soulier next.
Here, good. Okay. I spoke at a board meeting on 4/24 in regards to an author that was at the junior high. Tonight is a direct response to my frustration and want for clarification, which seems needed. At a 5/22 board meeting, it was addressed that a parent spoke about an author that had come to the school. I'm here as a concerned parent within the district. A parent's right to deny would lead one to believe that parents were made aware and given a choice to deny in the first place. That did not happen. There was no correspondence and there was no transparency or use of the many tools the district has to make parents aware. As far as protecting students who want access to appropriate resources, this statement raises questions. Protect students from who or what? Who deems what is appropriate resources? The gentleman that spoke stated if you are worried about what books are in the libraries that students have access to, the kids have access to everything in the world at their fingertips is absolutely not for the school to say. Where then does it stop? Just because people have access to something does not mean you affirm, supply, and encourage it. Do you also carry Playboy and Playgirl in the library because some girls or boys might want that resource? Who draws the boundary lines? What is not going to be deemed appropriate for minor children? Is there no end? Is everything within their reach going to be an appropriate resource deemed by your team? We should not have to be worried about every single thing that is taught within the school walls. You also said that you are going to have questions and topics that are simply part of parenting. Can you clarify exactly what do you deem as part of parenting? In your eyes, what role do parents play in our education system? If anybody on this board were ever to supply my child or children specifically with the education system has, I would have you arrested. It is pornography. To say that kids are seeing worse, hearing worse, and doing worse is presumptuous, false. And in my family, not the case. And I assure you, my husband and I do not give our children access to pornography. You also stated that it was ridiculous, and what I said disturbed you very much. How dare you dismiss my concerns as a parent? Which part of anything I said was disturbing or ridiculous or untruth? And I agree with you in saying that many things are ridiculous and I too find disturbing. How dare you say that I spoke untruth? Not one thing I said was untrue. How dare you speak to me about me in a way at a meeting where I was not here to represent myself? And is that what this board does? Parents can come and speak at this panel, but at a future board meeting, you speak about us and we're ridiculed? I firmly respect and stand by what I said about the book and any books that are not appropriate for schools for children of any age, no matter who is having sex in the book. Man, woman, vice versa, anybody, no matter what. Sex in this grade school is inappropriate. This is not about something and it's not. These are children, period. It's pornography, period. The author of this book advised kids at the end that he would answer questions about his lifestyle. He handed out free books. Kids weren't made aware, parents weren't made aware. How can you believe that parents wouldn't think that you were trying to be on a mission to deceitfully indoctrinate our kids?
That's time. Thank you.
Of course it is. Thank you for the 3 minutes. I represent the district of North Syracuse.
Okay, our next is Shannon Knapp.
The green light's still on, so I think I'm good. My name's Shannon Knapp. I'm a resident of the town of Clay, and I'm here as both a parent and a teacher. I'm here to express my unwavering support for the gender policy that has been proposed. It is imperative that we provide every student with a safe and supportive educational environment that nurtures their academic and developmental progress. By embracing this policy, we reaffirm our commitment to fostering a secure learning space, free from discrimination and harassment based on sex, gender, gender identity, gender nonconformity, and gender expression. In our diverse and ever-evolving society, it is essential that we recognize and respect the unique identities and experiences of all of our students. By acknowledging and honoring them as individuals, we are not only promoting inclusivity, but also demonstrating our dedication to their well-being. Gender should never be a barrier to receiving an education or achieving one's fullest potential. This policy not only ensures that every student feels safe and supported, but it also sends a powerful message of acceptance and understanding. By creating an environment where students can freely express their true selves, we foster a sense of belonging and encourage personal growth. When students are free to be themselves, they're more likely to thrive academically, emotionally, and socially. This policy aligns with the principles of equality and justice that our society upholds. It reflects the progress we've made as a community in recognizing and valuing the diversity that enriches our lives. By providing a safe space for all students, we not only meet our legal obligations, but also fulfill our moral duties to ensure fairness and equity for every child in our district. I urge you to approve this gender policy and show our students, their families, and our community that we are committed to providing them with an education that not only challenges their minds, but celebrates their identities. It is our responsibility to create a future where every student feels valued, respected, and empowered. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jeremy Mays is our next speaker.
thing on? Good evening. I come here today as a representative of a group of parents that are very concerned about policy 5311.8 student gender identity that this board adopted on June 5th, 2023. First of all, let me acknowledge that we are very well aware of the guidance that New York State Education Department had released, and for that, for the record, we disagree with that as well. We were disappointed that the board passed this policy in a matter of seconds, lumped together with 9 other policies. This sends a message to the community that you were hoping to avoid attention and public backlash. Sorry to disappoint you, but to date, more than 2,000 copies of this policy have now been disseminated throughout our community. Our founding fathers called for transparency in this experiment in self-government. They knew it was the only way that we, the people, could trust those elected to represent us. Your actions have fostered distrust in this school board. Let me remind you that you are here to do the will of the people that elected you. Your 3-minute 10-person rule for public input, along with the fact that you are not willing to engage in civil discourse with the people that have empowered you to represent them, sends the message that you don't really care what the public thinks. In our opinion, it is also a blatant disregard to the First Amendment, guaranteeing the right of the people to petition their government. I have reviewed the Bill of Rights several times and have not been able to find any time limits. Coming back to the specific issue at hand, student gender identity and the implications of such a policy are an incredibly controversial topic, and I'm sure that you are all aware of that. As such, I find it very hard to believe that not a single board member had any position or discussion that they wanted the public to hear. The way this appeared to many parents and taxpayers was cowardly. While it is true that the policy was available for all to read online, the effect that it has on our children should have warranted an immediate communication to every resident that pays school taxes in our district, and at the very least, parents of current students. So I ask you this: what are you going to do to keep children safe in this school district? As your current policy reads, it is plausible for a 7th grade biological male with a penis that identifies as a girl to share a bathroom or locker room with a 5th grade girl at our middle schools. And furthermore, what are you going to do to preserve the integrity of girls' sports? Boys are physiologically different than girls, and girls' sports teams give them a chance to display their abilities amongst a group of equally capable peers. Another concern that has been brought to our attention is regarding the book situation at the junior high that was just spoken about. This type of literature has no place in any K-12 school, and I urge this board to take swift action to remove any books with sexual connotations from any schools in the district. The responsibility of educating children about such topics falls solely on parents and guardians, and the school's job is to teach academics. I would also request that the Board of Education direct the superintendent to immediately disseminate policy 5311.8, student gender identity, to every parent and guardian in the district. This policy was adopted by the board unanimously, and as such, it should be assumed that you are proud of the work you are doing here. I am very well aware that there will be questions and backlash from the public, but I urge you to please remember that you are here to represent the constituents that elected you. Thank you.
We have Heather Robillard next.
My name is Heather Robillard. I'm a social worker with over 20 years' experience in the field. Almost all of these years have been working directly in a school-based setting. I'm a parent with 2 children in this district, and I'm a proud CNS alumni. I'm here with unwavering support of the student gender identity policy. If you have fear and anxiety regarding this policy, please do not let misinformation and false narratives drive your fear. Instead, arm yourself with genuine curiosity to help you understand. Knowledge can overcome fear, and everything I share with you today, it can be backed with data-driven research or examples from my firsthand professional experience. This policy is not groundbreaking. In fact, other local districts have adopted similar policies dating as far back as 2016. I'm thankful to live in a state where protections for this vulnerable population are strong, and I'm grateful that the district is putting equity, inclusion, and life safety at the forefront. LGBTQ youth are 4 times likely to attempt suicide than their peers. These youth are not inherently prone to suicide risk because of their sexual orientation or gender identity, but rather placed at a high risk because of how they are mistreated and stigmatized in society. Can you imagine being discriminated against because you merely exist? This policy represents hope, Protective factors, including affirming school policies, have been connected with lower suicidal behavior. At this core, this policy represents suicide prevention intervention. Evidence shows there is no link between trans-inclusive policies and bathroom safety. Did you know that in the 18 states that have policies allowing people to use the restroom that aligns with their gender identity, there has not been a single reported incident of a transgender person behaving inappropriately in a public restroom. There has also been no incidents of cisgender boys dressing as girls or saying that they feel like girls in order to access girls' locker rooms. I want to remind all of the adults, all of the educators, parents, and administrators that our children are watching us. Our youth are watching and listening to see how the adults respond to conflict, how we accept diversity, how we respond to differences, and how we show empathy and model tolerance. I welcome the opportunity to further communicate respectfully and with an open mind, because even though we all are coming from different places and different beliefs, I know that we have more in common than not. We all want our children to be safe, welcome, and be able and ready to learn. All of our children. This policy is not about special treatment or different rights. This policy is about equal rights for everyone.
Next speaker is Justice Tinker.
Good evening. Benjamin Franklin once said, without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. I asked the board to remember those words and who they came from as they make their decision to uphold the gender identity policy. As a student of NSCSD who walked the stage only 2 days ago and who happens to be transgender, I feel as though I have a stake in this conversation. It was hard navigating school as a transgender person, having only come out on my first day of 6th grade. I faced harsh bullying, online criticism, along with being told countless times that I should kill myself or be put in a mental institution. Yet here I am speaking before you all, having just graduated with advanced designation and career technical endorsement from New York State. As a student, I served on numerous clubs such as Yearbook, Principals Cabinet, the Alliance, Human Rights Club, Junior Honor Society, and Honor Society. I believe if this policy were to be upheld, it would save lives. The only way I truly believe I survived those years of intense bullying, which made me feel insecure and feel as though I'm not worthy of the same basic rights anyone is entitled to, is thanks to my teachers and administrators who supported me and never told me I wasn't who I am. Excuse me. The founding fathers founded a country that was meant to be inclusive, a country where there's a clear separation of church and state, a country where one can practice any religious beliefs they so wish, along with a country where we are all entitled to rights. I argue that the rights students in this district are entitled to are at risk tonight. Charles Darwin said, "It's not the strongest of the species who survive, nor the most intelligent, but the ones most responsive to change." This policy will only help the school district thrive into a future which is always changing. The future of the strength and love of the NSCSD community is up for discussion tonight, which is a sad and unfortunate thing to see, especially if the administrators and teachers put so much work and love and dedication into this community. My final ask of the board members tonight is to remember that this country is built on liberty, freedom, and justice for all. I personally believe that this policy is not improved, then there has not been any of those values upheld tonight. Students are entitled to freedom of speech and thus expression, as long as it does not interfere with the learning environment, according to Tinker versus Des Moines, a decision in which 7-2 of the 9 Supreme Court justices upheld. Having a policy that gives transgender students the same basic rights as cisgender students does not at all interfere with the learning environment of a school, but rather makes it better. So transgender students can feel safe enough to focus on their education instead of being bullied and ignored for being who they truly are. I want to thank you for your time and the ability to speak tonight. Please vote to uphold gender identity policy.
The next speaker is Jessica Dabson.
Good evening to the board and everyone who's here. I would just like to say that I am a descendant of a founding father. Public servants provide for the people. My grandmother's brother was a Republican US Congressman in DC, and my cousin is a lieutenant for a fire department, and I am a public school teacher. Serving the community, which is diverse and requires equity and fairness, is what my family and I have done for decades. Regardless of religion, race, creed, sexual orientation, or gender identity, we serve the people equally and without bias. For those of you who have come here today to criticize the gender identity policy, I urge you all to seriously consider exactly what it is that you're opposed to. And let me share with you my experience, not only as a teacher of high school students, but as a parent of a transgender child. 10 years ago, I lived in a small rural traditional community. I moved here to this district feeling like my child would be better accepted. My child started 3rd grade here in this district at Allen Road. And last week, my child, now graduating senior, revisited that same school for a senior walk. Unfortunately, a few years ago, I learned that a transgender junior high student in the community where I once lived had taken his own life. And that child had once played in my home with my child. Practically every teacher here in this district has been affirming of my child's gender identity. Just a couple of days ago, my child opened a card from a beloved 6th grade teacher, and there were about a dozen photographs of my child the year she transitioned at Roxborough Road Middle. The principal there at the time welcomed me into his office and asked me if I would lead the way in providing guidance for the teachers and students who would be witnessing the transition of a transgender classmate for possibly the first time. This was both appreciated and affirming. With resources from the City of Syracuse Q Center, I drafted a PowerPoint presentation that basically helped the 6th graders understand that their classmate, who they knew as an effeminate boy, would now be identifying as a girl. And every single year after that, I emailed all my child's teachers a few days before the first day of school, year after year after year, to let them all know my child was trans and that teaching my child to advocate was a priority. My child has been bullied and excluded, but I admit that has never been spearheaded by teachers or administrators in this district. Truth be told, that my child has been targeted by students in our middle and high schools, classmates who condemn my child's existence. In closing, I sincerely applaud the gender identity policy set forth by our Human Rights Committee, and I hope that it sets a precedent for all other school districts, rural, suburban, and urban, all across New York State. I look forward to it remaining in effect. And to those fearful of a policy such as this, I ask you to ask yourself, does a student's gender identity make them any less worthy of respect, support, and affirmation in the eyes of their peers, teachers, and administrators? Is my child and other transgender, non-binary, and gender fluid students undeserving of respect, human and civil rights, and equity?
Thank you. Heather Calabria's next.
My name is Heather Calabria. I'm in Clay. I want to first start out by saying that the New York State courts did determine that it was completely unconstitutional to mandate masks during the pandemic that we went through. It was EAU and unauthorized to mandate as well. It was especially unconstitutional to do so with children in schools. It is important to make the statement so you're aware that not only did you ignore the Constitution or ignoring the freedoms and liberties of your students and parents, during this court documents that did come out as well, there was proven that not one healthy student died, as well as it was also none of what the schools did was logical or humane. There still to this day has not been an apology for the complete dehumanization and lack of following science from the schools. We have not received an apology for the lack of a graduation and the lack of students have the right of entering to adulthood or their utter abuse.
Not only did you take advantage of the opportunity for government funds and brag about it having a surplus of funds to take advantage of this time to integrate hatred through critical race theory, division, socialism through equity and gender ideology into our schools without the consent of parents. During this time frame, mental health has been a major issue with kids as the suicide rate has gone up 25 to 30%. Now 1 in 4 teenagers are on antidepressants. Meanwhile, you are allowing this to happen by promoting ideologies that are destructive to children and society. None of us want to hear that you have increased funds for counselors in your equity programs. We want you to stop trying to parent our children. They are our children, and it is not your job to indoctrinate them with false ideology and invalidated history and science. You are directly causing the mental health crisis in children and then spending extra money to make it worse. Critical race theory does not belong in the schools. It is based on false history and teaching people to have victim mentality. Psychiatrists from over 50 years have been speaking out against this divisiveness that is creating, and that we should be teaching unity and patriotism. Science will also tell you that there are boys, XY, and girls, XX, and you cannot change those genes no matter what you do. It is not your job to teach gender and sexualization to our children, especially when that is directly creating mental health issues and confusion among children. We will not tolerate this new vocabulary you're providing in this policy, as it is ridiculous and not based on science. Gender is not a feeling, it is biology and purely simple. What is not simple is the chemicals and toxins out there that are creating people to be gender confused, but that gives you no right to promote that. Instead, we should be trying to detoxify, communicate with parents, and promote truth. Biological boys do not belong in girls' rooms, locker rooms, or in girls' sports. It is highly unethical and actually quite deviant and abusive. Why do you think it is actually okay to erase women? And speaking of science, Bruce Lipton is a cell biologist who has proven that thoughts in the environment can affect your cells and your genes, which is called epigenetics. You are directly putting deviant thoughts in children's minds, thereby causing them to have changes in thoughts that do affect minds and cells. The biology belief, and you are instilling these ideas in their heads. No one needs a pronoun, and this will not be tolerated. If you have a penis, you are a boy, and if you have a vagina, you are a girl.
Thank you. And Jackie Hayman, next.
Hi, my name is Jackie Hayman. I use she, her pronouns, and I come in front of the board today in proud support of the gender identity policy. As a teacher in this district for over 10 years, I have watched marginalized children struggle to survive in the system of misinformation and bias. Our North Syracuse community is suffering from a suicide epidemic. We have lost over 4 students in the last 5 years in this school district alone. And most of these children were part of the marginalized community that we are advocating for today. The spread of false information circulating from a small but loud group of parents intimidates and scares all of our children. According to the Trevor Project, nearly 1 in 5 transgender and non-binary youth attempted suicide last year, and more than half seriously considered attempting to do so, with rates being even higher for youth of color when compared to their white peers. LGBTQ youth who found their school environment to be LGBTQ affirming reported lower rates of attempted suicide. LGBTQ youth, who have reported having at least one accepting adult in their lives were 40% less likely to attempt suicide. Accepting and safe school environments and supportive adults in the school community can make a real difference in a student's well-being. With this policy in place, our school district is finally in line with Title IX, the federal law prohibiting sex discrimination in education, as well as the New York State human rights law that expressly prohibits discrimination by educational institutions against students and applicants based on their actual or perceived sex and gender identity of expression. Any public school in New York State that receives federal or state funding is required to comply with both of these laws. Making sure we have a policy in place is paramount for student safety. What is so brilliant about this policy is that it's for all of our students. all across all gender spectrums. Any and all of our students will have the right to request additional privacy in restrooms or locker rooms, not just transgender, non-binary or genderqueer, but all students. Students have the option of not changing at all for PE classes and can avoid the locker rooms completely. This is an open policy to make all students feel safe. As leaders in a school system, we are not only obligated to do our best to protect all of our students, but we have the responsibility to educate them with dignity and respect. This policy ensures that no one will be discriminated against based on gender. Creating a safe, affirming environment is a direct measure of safety. There is zero evidence of children being put in harm's way in a gender affirming and supportive school environment. The only evidence of student harm has been demonstrated in schools with restrictions and gender affirming environments. So I ask the Board of Ed, who do we really want to protect? Those with misinformed fears or real students in our schools? Thank you very much.
Okay, we have Board of Education Committee reports. I'll start with policy. You met last week, I believe.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, for tonight's agenda, we have, I believe, 9 policies the board to adopt. That's what that.
Okay, thank you. Legislation, I know we have.
Right,
Good
we're not
final
going to have a
meeting.
meeting to October, but I would like to thank the committee for all their dedication. Paul Fafalia, thank you. Xavier, thank you very much. Matt, thank you very much. And the student, Austin Mazzoli, that was on there. We made great gains. We got great help from our legislators, and we came out with a good budget. Thank you.
And the BOCES report, just that's submitted in the packet. Okay.
Again, this is the conclusion of my 7th year as the representative of North Syracuse on OCM BOCES. On June 5th, Cortland County had an Olympiad at SUNY Cortland. We're kind of trying to look at what North Syracuse does, and we want to thank North Syracuse for the costumes. I know they came back dry cleaned and so forth, but thank you, and we'll continue so that those students don't have to get on a bus for over an hour. Thank you. There've been a lot of graduations, and I thank our superintendent and also our assistant superintendent for attending some of these graduations, which include many North Syracuse students. I attended 6 out of 8. We all know about Micron, and our district superintendent, Dr. Cook, had a trip to Boise, Idaho, which is the capital of Micron, and said that we are moving forward in that. I wanted to tell the board, I sent it to you today, that July 11th through the 12th at Lemoyne College will be the first OCM BOCES Equity Summit. These will be a variety of workshops, national renowned speakers, and opportunities for educators and leaders to focus on creating welcoming and affirming environments and high expectations for all students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crabtree. Mr. Bowles, superintendent's comments.
Thank you. I'd like to start off with, again, acknowledging the 604 graduates Friday night that were honored. It was extremely impressive. And again, for everyone that was there, I want to thank them for their work. I do want you to know, and you know, we will be having a 3-day chip camp, and we're starting off with students going to Cornell to look at a clean room at Cornell University and looking at all the processes for what takes place in order to create these chips. And then we'll have a half-day split between our district and the most on Wednesday, and then full day in district on Thursday. I do want to honor some of our athletes, and there's one in particular, and Kate Putnam was named Female Athlete of the Year, and she also won a second state crown this year. The district also came in third overall as far as the athletic program. I think JD and Beeville edged us out, but there was quality competition all year. And I do want to, on a personal note, I did have a company from out of town stop in and see our family, and I took him by some of the facilities, and this person's from Denver, and they were just truly amazed. So Mr. Irwin, Mr. Keegan, the facilities here in North Syracuse, you saw the presentation. They were very impressed with what they saw, the small snippet. But again, congratulations. And that is all.
Thank you. Board of Education comments. I just was going to mention, he mentioned graduation. I was going to say it was a privilege and honor to be part of that. And it was just congratulations. And I hate the word kudos, but I'll say, I won't use it. I just did. Congrats to the staff, because it was a well-oiled machine. To do that inside of 2 hours with 604 was phenomenal. It was just a great event. So thank you. Mr. Crabtree?
So just, I love our school district so much, and many people said wonderful things about it tonight, and it's so true. I attended the Gillette Road 7th grade awards, and so many of our middle school children will now move on to the junior high, and they were awarded many awards. I went to Mark's favorite school, Roxborough Road Elementary. So I went from 7th grade to kindergarten and kindergarten through 4th grade. They were honored. They all walked over to the middle school, sat there quietly. Each of them were honored. And I said, well, when they get up to be seniors, somebody's got to learn about their names because they're very difficult. And then I just want to piggyback on our superintendent. There were some other students, so I wanted to list them. It's like the Academy Awards of our athletes. It's the second year they've had it. It was held on Syracuse University. Kate Putnam, of course, won the girls outdoor, indoor track, and athlete of the year. But we don't want to forget Chrissy Wagner, who won for field hockey. But there were other students that were nominated, didn't win, but I think being nominated in the top 4 of all of Onondaga County is something. So Xander Provost for outdoor track, the CNS field hockey team for team of the year, Isabella Bort for golf, Elizabeth Smith for girls lacrosse, Wyatt DePel, who I gave his diploma to for soccer, Caitlin Carroll for swimming and diving, and next year we're going to see your daughter there, Joe Ziegler for boys volleyball. And as Mr. Bowles said, we were number 3 out of 30 school districts for sports. And now with a new director of fine arts coming in this district, we're going to make music up there and art too. All right, so here goes on a couple things. I know we've been talking about school exemptions for the last 2 or 3 months for firefighters, for veterans, and for seniors. I am getting all kinds of different kinds of opinion. I've taken this to OCM BOCES twice. Other school districts said it's not even being told to them by their superintendents. So I know this is going to be some work, and I know you've worked hard, but we need a spreadsheet of districts, and we need to know who is giving an exemption for firefighters, who's getting an exemption for veterans, and who's getting exemption, and what is the monetary level. I'm hearing a lot of different things. And when I see board members look at me and go, no, it's not happening in our school district. I know where you're hearing that. So I think we need that information, and we have until March. Am I correct, Don? We have until March, so we don't have to hurry on this. I do think, Mr. President, it's time for a retreat again. I think if our great district clerk would put out whatever it's called, doodle or whatever, and give us some, I don't know what it's called, but anyway, so that we get together as a team with our administrations. And I think it would be nice to invite some of the cabinet, or invite the cabinet to be part of it sometime during the summer. I would think that would be great. And to do the evaluation tool that needs to be done. And I know you won't be on the school board that much, but I think he would be able to fill some of it out. And that's all from me.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a quick comment to make.
Sure.
As some of you may know, I do coach travel basketball AAU. I took my team down to Spooky Nook, Pennsylvania, and we won East Coast Nationals. So we are officially East Coast National Champions. And on that team, I do have 3 CNS students I wanted to give a quick acknowledgement to. I have Joey Paycheck, Parker Karachi, and Josh Benedict. They were all huge help, and we couldn't have done it without them this season. So congratulations to those 3 and then the whole team as well.
I also have a
Yes, sir,
quick
Mark.
comment.
Yep.
I just wanted to send out a special thanks to Amanda Dolbear. I attended the 3rd grade field trip at Roxelle a couple weeks ago, and she managed to somehow get 115 bikes donated. 48 students who did not have bikes went home with bikes. And it was incredible to see all the kids riding around in the parking lot on bikes, including bikes for students with disabilities.
Thank you. I did see that story on the news. That was cool. Yeah. Other comments? Yes, sir, Matt.
Yeah. See if I can get this right without tripping over my tongue. All right. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody who spoke tonight. I know that's not always easy speaking in public, no matter what your opinion is. So I do appreciate them coming out. I do believe that the public should be more involved. And I do agree with the first speaker, because Mr. Crabtree puts it through our head every year. We need more people to come out and vote at our elections. Okay, there is a huge number of people in this district, and we get very low turnouts. And we really don't know what you want if we don't see you come out and vote. So I appreciate those who came and talked today. I love all the accolades. We've had some great sports honors and everything else. I know I'm kind of a little late on this one, but I did go to the honors ceremony. I did make something, and I was proud to see how many of our students were getting scholarships for academics. It is amazing how many of these kids were walking away with some really good money to at least start school. Some of them didn't get free rides, some didn't get 4 years, but at least they got something in their back pocket to help them start. And that's all because of the academics and the teachers and the administrators who try as hard as they can. And this board who tries as hard as we can to do the right thing for the students every chance we get. And I'd like to thank the board for continuing that with my, all of us together. Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Can I say one quick thing?
Yes, you may.
My daughter just graduated, but I wanted to say thank you to all the teachers. The kids got envelopes once they got their diplomas, and inside were letters from some of their old teachers. And let me tell you, my daughter got a letter from her 3rd grade or 6th grade and an 8th grade teacher, and it was amazing. It meant the world. I'm so thankful to her 2nd grade teacher who retired 10 years ago, wrote her a letter. So I don't know. Thank you to the teachers that took the time to write the letters to those kids. I know every kid got letters in their packet, and that really meant a lot to the kids. Thank you.
Yeah, that is a really cool thing. I think is it the 2nd or 3rd year they've done this, but it's you see, I can see, I watched the looks, you can see the looks on their face, some of them wiping tears when they're reading something from a 1st grade teacher, 2nd grade teacher, and yeah, it is a really neat idea. And it's a lot of work because there's a lot of, 604 this year, but yeah, thank you. Yes.
I don't think we've had a meeting since our Dollars for Scholars ceremony. So I want to thank Mr. Crabtree for all of his work, what he puts into that and his entire team over there. It's incredible to see the amount of money that we're able to give out to students and to see where they're going for furthering their education. So Bob, thank you for everything you do in that program.
Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, I'll go to routine action items and look for a motion to put A in front of us, approval of the minutes of the meeting of June 5th. Motion from Mr. Marizio, second from Ms. Segru. Those minutes are before us. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. I'd like to make a motion or ask for a motion to place B, C, and D together, the consideration of classification and placement of the disabled students in the various programs in home instruction, preschool, and in school. So we have B, C, and D. If somebody can make a motion. Motion, Mr. Thorne, second from Mr. Crabtree. B, C, and D are in front of us. Do we have any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. A motion, please, for E, acknowledgement of business office reports for May of 23. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Mr. Moody Woosick. Those are before us. Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. And a motion for F, please. Contract award for interscholastic supplies bid. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Mr. Herman. That is in front of us. Any questions, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. G, consideration of contract award for the HVAC filters bid. Motion, place that before us, please. Motion from Ms. Segru, second from Mr. Marizio. That is before us. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. And H, consideration of contract award for automotive supplies. Motion to place that before us. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Mr. Moody Woosick. That is before us. Questions, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Okay, discussion action items. We have A, the approval of the extension of the 2019 to 23 contract between the district and the North Syracuse per diem professionals. A motion, please place that before us. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Ms. Segru. That is before us. Any questions?
Make a comment. I want to thank Jason and Don for negotiating this. When I saw what retired teachers are getting, I thought maybe I should come back.
Mr. Herman, did you have? Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. And an amendment to the 23-24 district calendar. B, a motion to place that before us for motion, Mr. Marizio, second from Ms. Segru. That is before us. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. And C, acknowledgement of gifts from the NSEF grants, please. A motion to place that, Mr. Thorne, second from, need a second. Ms. Segru. That is appropriately before us now. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Indeed, the resolution approving the second amendment to the superintendent's employment agreement. A motion place that before us. Motion, Mr. Marizio, second from Mr. Moody Woosick. Any question?
I'd just like to make a comment on this. I believe Mr. Bowles will be starting his 5th year with us, and I can't imagine going through what we have gone through, as some of the speakers said, for 4 years without his leadership. He has always put students and staff first. And I want to thank you personally, and know you will tell me, just like Jerome Melvin did, it's teamwork, and it is teamwork with people here, but the leader is the one that leads us. And this board has, I know, is very pleased with what you have done for this district.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Thank you. Resolution to create a 0.25 stock attendant. Motion from Ms. Segru, second from Mr. Thorne. That is before us. No, that's what we do.
I'm asking, is this for Central Science Supply at Main Street, or is this something else? Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank
Okay,
you.
yeah. Any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. And F, a resolution to create a teacher on special assignment for universal pre-K coordinator. Motion, Mr. Marizio, second from Mr. Moody Woosick. That is before us. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, just, what do they call it? The funds are coming elsewhere, from elsewhere, right? If I'm understood it properly, right?
Coming from the UPK grant.
Right, the UPK grant, right? It's not coming
Okay.
out, right? I just wanted people to know that.
Thank you. Other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Declaration of marketable and non-marketable surplus. G, a motion please to accept that. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Mr. Moody Woosick. Thank you. Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. In a motion please for H. Motion from Mr. Marizio, second from Ms. Zagru. It looks easy sometimes, you know. Okay, that is before us. Any questions or comments? Seeing all in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, we are now at the 9 policies, I through Q. Before I go forward, I would like to recommend we separate out I. Does anybody want to separate out anything else or lump in J through Q, or you want to do them all separately?
I would prefer we do them all separately.
Do
That's
all-
my choice. I'm
Okay,
only one
well,
person.
I think we should, but I was gonna just, see what the board thought on that. So that brings us to I. So I'll ask for a motion to place that before us. Motion from Mr. Moody Woosick, second from Mr. Thorne. So I is before us. This is a student gender identity policy adoption, an amendment and adoption. And this is an amendment to an already adopted policy that was read twice and was spoken about tonight. So I have a few brief comments, but I'm going to just open it up for comments or discussion on this item if people would like to.
This is not a political talk. This is not a political policy. This is a basic human rights policy.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to say that we have a committee. We have a policy committee that Mr. Thorne led that has students, teachers, and parents on that committee. So it is a committee that puts forth these policies that we look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I just had a question.
Yes.
Was it reviewed because it was time to review and adapt, or was it, what do they call it, amended because we felt it needed to be amended? I'm just curious what brought it back up again.
It was amended because we felt it needed to be amended.
Okay. And as Mr. Crabtree said, you have a group that goes through these things, and thank you. I just curious. Thank you.
Other? I mean, I'll just say this, and I'm old. What's that got to do with this, right? It's got something. I mean, I guess I have to think about what I say, and somebody once told me less is more. Recently, but it was amended because we have the guidance. You heard reference to the guidance from 2015, and another 42 pages came out within the last less than 2 weeks ago. And this guidance from the state ed department, but it's guidance based on not just nothing, but it's based on New York State human rights law and federal law. And what it's doing is providing enhanced protection for students that are specified in this policy, enhanced protection. And like my colleague Xavier just said, this isn't political. You get elected to this board, you take an oath as a fiduciary, and part of that is to use prudent judgment when you're hearing from experts, to ask questions, but another part is the duty of loyalty. So my opinion doesn't matter. It's hard to say that. My opinion is, I have a background, I have experiences that are the lens through which my perspective is built. However, at the end of the day, I have to do in my oath what's best for the North Syracuse Central School District. And I was on the committee that helped write the strategic plan, and we did a lot of wordsmithing. And I referenced this recently. And I'm going to do it again because, you know, when you look at the strategic plan, we have a mission, we have a vision. And I've written a lot of those over the years and I've thought these are just words and nobody looks at them. But I take these seriously and when Mr. Keegan and Mr. Bowles and Mr. Leahy come to us with the budget recommendations and HR, Mr. Nephews comes to us with staffing. Everything we do has got to directly point back to our strategic plan. That's why we put it there. And if we can't point it directly back to it, we have to really question why we're doing it. And our visions, I'm going to read it. Part of it, our schools and classrooms are safe, welcoming, and inclusive, where all students are valued and supported. That's what we do. That's what that says. That's what this policy was all about. And we wrote that over the course of over a year with several stakeholders, not in private. And why is that our vision? Because our mission is to educate all students to the highest levels of academic achievement and prepare them to be productive, responsible, ethical, creative, and compassionate members of society. We wrote that. We looked at it again and again and again. It was brought to this board. It's printed, it's on the website, it's everywhere. And so but the major role of a Board of Education, we hire a superintendent. We go by their recommendations on firing and hiring, but we write policy. That's our responsibility. And how could we be responsible if we don't write a policy that's in line with guidelines that put us in line with the law? And it's a policy that came through a service that several school districts adopted. So I said I was going to be brief and I wasn't. I said I was going to say less and I didn't.
Can I say one more thing?
And I'm going to say one more thing. Or I was, but this is where the old part comes in and it went. I don't know. We're not taking away anything. We're providing, somebody said it tonight, protections that everybody else is assured. Not political. Yes, done.
I'd like to say this very clearly so everybody here can hear me and everybody that's watching can hear me. Trans lives matter.
So so we have policy I before us right now. Moved in second and any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, we have that recorded. That is carried. Thank you. J, policy reporting crimes committed school district property to local law enforcement agencies. A motion, please place that before us. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Mrs. Grew. Okay, that is before us. Any discussion, questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, policy for DASA, dignity for all students. Motion place that before us, please. Motion from Mr. Herman, second from Mr. Maurizio. Okay, DASA, dignity for all students, which is a required piece and is in line with what we just talked about. That's before us. Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. L, data security and privacy protection of student, teacher, and principal personal information. A motion, please. Mr. Thorne, second from Mr. Moody Woosick. That is before us. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. M, procurement policies and procedures, policy 6700. A motion, please put that before us. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Mr. Maurizio. That is before us. Questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Policy on student immunizations. N, please, motion. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Mr. Moody Woosick. That is before us. Questions, discussions, comments?
Just comment as the
Yes.
pharmacist that nothing has changed. This doesn't include COVID, flu, just the normal
And
polio,
I read it and it was
meningitis,
just in
all
line.
the
with
typical
It's all
stuff.
the required New York State
Yes.
state ed.
I just like
department.
to make sure people know that.
No, that's a good point to make. Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Oh, policy for students serving as ex officio. Motion from Mr. Crabtree, second from Mr. Marizio. That is before us. Questions?
Comment.
Sure.
I want to thank, I've thanked this board a million times, but I want to thank you. And I want to thank Mark personally, because it was a tough, decision for some people, but we will now have a senior from CNS sit on this board, not having any voting, will not hear any of the whatever, but will be part of this board. And so we increase the communication between our high school and this school board. Unfortunately, we're having trouble finding somebody, okay? I've tried everything. And so if anybody knows a senior, going to be a senior at CNS and is interested in being part of this board, coming to a meeting twice a month, also being either on policy or legislative, please see your principal because this is a great moment for our district. Thank you.
Okay, that is before us. Any other questions or comments? So this is all set, ready to go once we pass this. Okay, yep. All right, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. MP, policy 5441 on naloxone, better known as Narcan, policy formal adoption. Mr. Thorne, second from Mr. Marizio. That's before us. Questions, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed. And Q, memorial commemoration policy, formal adoption. Motion, place that before us, please. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Mr. Marizio. Questions or comments? I have questions that I don't need answered right now, but as we go forward, just when I looked at this, just down the road clarification, there's a part in the beginning in the preamble paragraph where, and I'm looking because I don't know I know Mr. Thorne chaired it. It references in the, not to rush into something early due to emotions, after a loss or sudden loss. When you're looking at memorializing, whether it be a one-time thing, an event, and then it references permanent memorials. But under permanent memorials, it references they needed to be done inside of 1 year. So I was trying to reconcile that in my head where you can't rush into it, but you got a year deadline. And so as we go forward, I don't know, I'm not sure that'll play out. I know it's not something that we use a lot, but we may now that we have a policy here. So as we look forward, I want to just keep an eye on that, as well as the, as I read this, we're going to have a standing committee, a permanent committee that would be there, I believe, for looking at the permanent memorials, I think is what the committee was for, how I read it. So I was correct on that. Okay. And I just want to make sure I was correct in reading. The board still has to, obviously, in a case of a permanent memorial, approve it. Which may be the rationale is why we don't have a board member on that standing committee, which I noticed, but I'm throwing those out as questions, not to answer now. I support this. Make that clear. But yeah, I just want to make sure as we go forward, if we need to amend it for whatever reason to look at it, because it is something new and it's something we talked about it over the last couple of years about having a policy. So I'm glad to see this here. Yeah, and it's referenced in there. Anything that's already there doesn't use the word grandfathered in, but that's how I read that. Yeah. But we had discussed procedures and yeah. Yep. Okay, yep. Other comments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Thank you. Very good. Instructional personnel report A is before you. You've had a chance to look at a motion to place it before us. Mr. Thorne, a motion, second from Mr. Herman. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. You coach basketball. That was a head fake, you know, Mr. No look pass. All right. Motion place B before us, support staff personnel report. Motion from Mr. Moody Woosick, second from Ms. Segru. That is before us. Questions, concerns, comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. In the administrative personnel report C, motion place that before us. Motion from Mr. Moody Woosick, second from Mr. Thorne. That is before us. Questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. I'm going to make a motion for executive session. I will ask for a second. I'm going to make a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of hearing one parental appeal of a superintendent's decision with action to follow, two legal matters with no action to follow, and one personnel item with no action to follow. If I get a second, please. Second from Mr. Maurizio. That's before us. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, we are in executive session. So we don't adjourn. We'll adjourn when we come back. Thank you.